MWC 2024. I'm here together with Todd Ashton, Ericsson head of South and East Africa. Hi, Todd.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. And you?
Yeah, I'm good.
Pleasure to meet you. Todd, Africa has a huge potential, ambitious plans. I mean, we strive to connect the next billion in an extremely young continent, so where 50% of the population is below 30. So to connect these people requires strong networks, future-proven networks. What is your experience of the progress in Africa, and what would you say are, besides the opportunities we have, the struggles in order to, let's say, cater the demand we will have?
Yeah, I think so. I moved to Africa in 2020 during COVID. At that point, the 4G coverage in Africa was about 7% of the population. We've seen over the past 3.5, 4 years that number really move up. I mean, getting closer and closer to 30%. And my experience has been once you get past 20%, you start to get the network effect. What has enabled that? I mean, one is the fact that we've been building 4G out across sub-Saharan Africa, but also the price points for the 4G devices has been coming down, making it more affordable for this younger population you're talking about. When it comes to challenges, the challenge is the same thing as why we've grown so much. The device prices are still maybe not where we need to be. And this is for a variety of reasons. I mean, smartphones are expensive, but also it could be due to duties at different borders. It could be to the lack of local manufacturing or assembly. So I think that's one big challenge we've seen. The other has been to make sure there's enough spectrum available for the mobile operators. So I think those are the two main areas where we've been trying to work hard with governments to let's say, iron out so the growth can really be there. But that said, the 4G growth has been amazing.
All right, thank you. So if you look, we have areas with high density, a lot of people, we have very developed areas, but we still have a huge amount of rural and semi-rural areas, which we need to connect. It's not only how can we manage the affordability, we also need still to bring connectivity to certain areas. So what is your experience and your take on that?
Yeah, so that brings me to maybe the third challenge when we talk about getting mobile broadband out everywhere, and that is also connectivity from a power perspective, where you see, I mean, even suburban, but definitely rural and deep rural, the power part is an issue as well. And then that's the sort of infrastructure piece. The other part is, if you go really rural, the business case may be very long tail or not exist at all. So what do we need to do there? I think there we've been working on some unique solutions for deep rural, single pole solutions using solar as power, because you may not get the grid. But governments are also helping here because they usually have the Universal Service Fund, where then mobile operators can get together to put a site and all share it, because that helps in areas where there's no business case reduce the costs. So I think those are two main aspects for that area. I think longer term, and I think COVID showed us this, I think COVID showed us broadband is a basic human right. Fiber is not going to be going to these places. So I believe in the longer term, 4G and definitely 5G will be solutions for rural to help bridge the digital divide between the rural and urban areas.
So how does Ericsson helps there to create a future-proof network for the next few years? So even if we see today's demand with AI, with cloud solution enterprises, I mean, we just put more and more traffic on these networks and we need strong networks.
Yeah, well, I think the biggest aspect, or one of the biggest aspects with that, has to do with power consumption. So the whole logic behind adding 5G is we cannot continue to say 2G, 3G, 4G, and the power consumption follows the same. I mean, we had to do what we call break the energy curve and fit all this different bandwidth into a smaller, say, energy envelope. We were putting out radios, and so that was the R&D concept. We've done some specific R&D for Africa, where we have multi-band radios that have reduced the power consumption by 50% or more. And I think this is the critical thing for rural to really reduce the operational cost.
Okay. If you look at the African market and the markets where you're actually playing a role, do you see there's any progress in terms of how can we, let's say, speeden up to connect the unconnected, how to make networks more stable, even more, let's say, resilient as well?
Yeah, I think there's a few countries where I've seen some dramatic progress on 4G recently. To name a few, I mean, one has been in Rwanda, where we've seen a massive rollout now of 4G to cover the country in a complicated environment with all the hills and everything. So that's one area where, together with mobile operators and the government, we've worked closely. Another one I can highlight is Tanzania. We see the same thing. You have the rural challenge, but I see the mobile operators and the regulator and government working hand in hand to try to find ways to solve these issues around if there's a business case, but how do we connect rural and all that. So I think we see some good progress.
So you're optimistic for the future?
I am. I mean, I moved to Nairobi in 2020, and I've seen how 4G has really exploded there. So I know there's been some challenges in some countries, but I think the progress is still quite encouraging.
Would you say we could be in a position where you could have a blueprint how to develop certain areas? How can we cover these rural areas, semi-rural areas, or with the sample of Rwanda when you say the geographical issues?
No, but I really think the formula is like this. I think we need to think about, I see broadband as a basic human right. I also know that for every 1,000 connections, 80 new jobs are created. We've learned that the longer a woman has a smartphone in the family, there's higher disposable income for the family. We also know that Africa is suffering maybe more than many continents for CO2 emissions that are coming from elsewhere. So if those four things are important for any country, then you would decide to do things like make sure spectrum is available and it's affordable, because mobile operators need to have money to invest in networks, not in spectrum. You would do things like ensure no tariffs on import of mobile phone. And that failing, you would do local assembly to get the price of that down. I think just those two things by themselves make a big difference. And then you would free up money for mobile operators, not just to build the networks, but do it at a lower CO2 footprint for the environment. And then you would also allow more women to get smartphones in rural areas. I think all these things for inclusivity, economic development, those are the areas where we have to continue to work with our customers, but also the governments.
So we could agree that it needs a strong partnership between the public and private sector to solve this issue.
Otherwise, it does not work, because you're addressing problems that are beyond pure business problems.
Thanks for that. So AI is a big buzzword here.
Yeah.
So how does AI help Ericsson as of today, probably already internally, to make things more efficient? And how do you see it also can be beneficial for your clients in the market?
So, you've hit the nail right in the head. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, these are technologies we're using to do things like put our 5G base stations over there into deep sleep when there's no phones connected. Deep sleep means then that they turn off temporarily until the phone comes back on, saving power. That power, because power can be expensive in some countries, saves our customers money. So this is one example. We use artificial intelligence and machine learning for optimizing networks. So the landscape of Africa. Not every place is a good place to send big teams. So the more you can do remotely, the better. And so we're able to optimize networks using AI and machine learning techniques. So I think, in a way, Africa is the place where we should do the most because of the logistic challenges, physical security challenges, etc.
So you're perfectly fitted to take on it.
I think so.
That's good.
Yeah.
Very interesting conversation. Thank you very much, Todd.
Yeah. Thank you.
That was Tech Africa News from MWC 2024. You can find more on techafricanews.com.